Let's talk Mets baseball. Yep, that just came out of my mouth. Armen Levack, 104.5 The Team, your home for New York sports. And, of course, this time of year, November, it's kind of a surprise for the Mets having a lot of stuff going on. But we'll take it. We love it. And Adam Rubin of ESPN New York is all over it. And, Adam, first of all, Mets fans around the Capital Region yesterday, they're starting to get a little excited in regards to Troy Tulowitzki in Colorado. What is the latest with that?
Well, I have some sources telling me that's not going to happen. The Mets are going to. So sorry to disappoint you, but the Cuddyer news is very positive with the Mets, and they do plan to go out and get a shortstop, and it's going to be via trade, not free agency. But I think the Arizona Diamondbacks, where they have Didi Gregorius, think the White Sox with Alexei Ramirez, don't rule out the Seattle Mariners or the Chicago Cubs. So the Mets want to go out and get a shortstop via trade, but it's not going to be Tulowitzki, and the reason for that is twofold. One, the $100 million plus contract still owed to him and the injury risk tied to that, but that alone wouldn't be a disqualifier, but that coupled with the fact that they'd have to give up 2 or 3 premier prospects in the deal, those two things combined, it absolutely is going to kill any momentum towards that.
Well, you said that the contract wouldn't kill it. That would have been my first guess. So it sounds like the Mets could be taking a step forward if they weren't necessarily turned off completely by the money amount. In the past, maybe they would be. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, I mean, the Mets payroll actually is right now is slated to be over $100 million, which is the first time in a few years with the Cuddyer deal, even though it's backloaded and with all the raises to current Mets, it's currently about $101 million, and they still have that addition to do. Now, they could subtract a player, too, like Daniel Murphy in the right deal. Basically, the scenario with trading Murphy is that if they get a more offensively inclined shortstop like Alexei Ramirez, they could slide Wilmer Flores over to second and be comfortable trading Murphy and yet still think they're bats. They have enough bats in the lineup. If they get a more defensive-oriented shortstop, like a Didi Gregorius from Arizona, then they probably hold on to Murphy because they need his bat in the lineup. And the other place where they can subtract a salary is starting pitching, because with Matt Harvey returning, they have an excess starter. So between Bartolo Colon, Dylan G, and John Neese, they'll make them all available, see if they get a good offer for one of them. And they're not inclined to trade one particularly, but whichever one commands the best offer, they'll look to trade up that pitcher.
Exciting times for the Mets as we're in the offseason now. Adam Rubin of ESPN New York with Armen Levack on 104.5 The Team.
I was kind of shocked that the Mets are already players in the free agent market. I love it. Tell us about what Cuddyer adds to the Mets.
Well, I mean, I was just filling out a potential lineup right now, and he, to me, slots in at the number 5 position in the batting order as a righty bat, right behind Lucas Duda. So you have David Wright, Lucas Duda, who had 30 home runs last year, and then Cuddyer 3, 4, 5. I mean, obviously, some of the numbers with Colorado are a little inflated power-wise, and obviously he was limited to 40-some-odd games this year because of injury, so he's got to stay in the lineup. But it gives them another quality bat in the outfield, which they desperately needed. Obviously, this team has been power deficient for a while. One of the things they're doing is bringing in the walls a little bit in right center to help out their power hitters like Granderson and Wright, but to also bring in another bat, it just makes them that much more of a threat, because the pitching is really, really sound at this point. You reintroduce Harvey with Jacob deGrom, who was named the NL Rookie of the Year yesterday, and you add Zach Wheeler in the mix, and then 2 of 3 from Neese, Cologne, and gee, that's a very credible starting rotation that's going to take them very far if they have the bats to couple with it. And then the bullpen, too, which, if you remember, a year ago, they opened the year with Valverde and Farnsworth at the back end of the bullpen. Now you look at it, just like Harvey's coming back from Tommy John in the rotation, you have Bobby Parnell coming back, who's the former closer, to the bullpen from Tommy John. So you have that. You have Henry Mejia. You have Jeurys Familia, another hard-throwing guy, Vic Black, a lefty Josh Edden, Carlos Torres. So they really just need to add a lefty arm for the bullpen, second lefty, and they're all set pitching-wise. So they really needed that bat like Cuddyer, and possibly even one more to really put them over the top. And I'm not saying they're going to unseat the Washington Nationals this upcoming year, but now they'll at least be competitive for a wild card spot, and certainly, hopefully, snap that streak of 6 straight seasons under 500.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at it, with this move, with the Cuddyer move, with Harvey coming back, they're a lot closer than you would be led to believe looking at last year, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, they were only a couple games under 500 last year, and that was with early on using guys, as I mentioned, like Farnsworth and Valverde. It's a much sounder team now than it was at the beginning of last year, Plus, if you add Cuddyer in there, maybe you add in just a capable shortstop or something like that. And really, they're not that far away. As I said, I don't think they're winning 94 games next year, and I've seen the Nationals, but we've seen 85, 86 wins is right in the wild card hunt or even the wild card winner. So certainly they're going to be in the mix next year. You have to believe, unless there's just some injuries. And I mean, certainly the injuries could happen. I mean, Wright obviously had a shoulder issue last year that limited his power. We'll see how he responds. He's not going to have surgery. Cuddyer is going to be 36 next year, so we'll see where that plays out. And if Cologne's still around, I mean, things could sidetrack the pitching too. I mean, Cologne's going to be 42 next year. Harvey's returning from Tommy John surgery, so you never know how that's going to play out, even though everything's positive so far. So, I mean, there are a lot of injury risks and ifs, but I mean, certainly things are much more positive than any time in the last few years with the Mets.
Adam Rubin of ESPN New York. It's Armen Levack. We're live from Sapone Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram. And Adam, on your Twitter, you've kind of hinted that the future of Daniel Murphy could be up in the air. Trades for the Mets this offseason, what are you thinking in that regard? And is Daniel Murphy one of the names that could be dealt?
Well, I mean, on the plus adding side, you're looking to add a shortstop via trade, as I mentioned. So the two Chicago teams, White Sox and Cubs, Mariners, Diamondbacks are teams to watch there. Subtracting possibly Murphy, and that could be a team looking for a third baseman, a first baseman, a second baseman, or just a utility backup guy if it's a really good team. Now, the Mets aren't going to give away Murphy, and as I said, they'll need to have a shortstop who is an offensive threat before they resolve to trade Murphy. So that's one person who could get traded. The other person who could get traded is either Cologne, G, or Neese from the rotation now that Harvey's coming back. And you know what? Maybe they could address the shortstop position by trading one of those pitchers, say sending Neese and a prospect to somebody to get that starter at shortstop that they wanted. So we'll see how things play out, but certainly they're only a few moves away, and there's probably going to be trades rather than free agency at this point.
With DeGrom winning the NL Cy Young, are any of those young arms now available, or are they going to keep cultivating them and stay pitcher-rich?
Well, you know, they're very, very sound at AAA, too, with the rotation and the pitching arms there. Steven Matz should be in that AAA rotation next year. You still have Rafael Montero. You still have Noah Syndergaard, who's the best prospect of them all. So could they trade one of those prospects in the right deal? Maybe one, but I don't think they're looking to – they're certainly not looking to package young prospects at this point. And as I said, the pitcher they probably will trade is going to be a veteran arm who's already around, like G or Neese or Carlone.
Adam Rubin of ESPN New York with Armen Levack on 104.5 The Team. You're home for New York sports.
Adam, you brought it up, but it's kind of been the punchline of a lot of jokes. How much help is moving the outfield walls actually going to be for these bats?
Well, it'll help the bats. I mean, David Wright's power is to right center, so anytime you move that in, it's going to help. I mean, certainly Duda and Granderson as lefty bats. I think Sandy Alderson, while he hasn't specified the dimensions yet, has said that maybe 7 more homers would be produced by Granderson with the new dimensions. But you have to remember, I mean, it's stating the obvious, but it helps out the opponents too. And when you're such a pitching strong organization, do you really want to weaken that by allowing more home runs for them to surrender to? And then you look at hey, the World Series teams with the Giants and the Royals, teams that play in big ballparks and just play the game the right way. So it's funny that the Mets were moving in the walls at a time when the playoff teams, and particularly the World Series teams, were teams that excelled in larger ballparks. And then the other factor to mention is that Juan Lagares is your Gold Glove center fielder, and he thrives on going back into those alleys and running down balls. So do they reduce the asset they have in Juan Lagares by moving into walls? I mean, obviously Juan can play a little more shallow now, you would think, and maybe there's no effect at all. But just on the surface, you could argue that Lagares is less effective now because of the smaller dimensions.
Armen Levack, 104.5 The Team. Interesting stuff from Adam Rubin of ESPN New York. Follow him on Twitter at Adam Rubin ESPN. Of course, read on the daily his Mets information for you. Hey, it was Buster only one time. We have Buster on every Thursday. And one time we started asking Buster about in-depths of Mets, and Buster stops and says, guys, just ask Adam Rubin. That's where I get my information. So Adam Rubin's the guy when it comes to New York Mets. Adam, appreciate your time, man. It's been a busy offseason for you thus far. We'll probably even get more hectic, and we appreciate you stopping by today.
Excellent. Thanks for the compliment.